My name is Debbie Westlake, spelled Debbiewstlake, and I am here today because I would like to share with you a small portion of my experience with the department as well as discoveries I've recently made. Due to a then undiagnosed medical condition in April of 2015, I awoke in the hospital to find a copy of a piece of paper, not a court order, stating that DPHHS had taken custody of my son. I was hospitalized for 2 weeks and greatly appreciate the department's assistance during that time as a mystical mother. However, instead of offering any kind of voluntary placement or respite care as the law and their own policy allow, my son was immediately placed into foster care until late August. During that time, the department introduced us to visitation specialist who was responsible for transporting my child. Mr. Lewis often showed up at my house without my son on days no visits were scheduled and made numerous sexual advances towards me. I reported his actions in October to a coworker and never saw him again. Our case was dismissed in early November and within days of his arrest on 4 counts of incest. He is currently serving 80 years on those charges, along with another 10 for witness tampering. On February 16th, 2016, after making arrangements to get my son to school, I was taken to the ER by ambulance. Approximately 30 minutes after my arrival, 2 CPS employees visited me there and stated that the department would once again be removing my son from my care. I'd like to be very clear here. There was no court order nor warrant, only a piece of paper that stated the reason of a removal as unable to parent due to medical reasons. There was also no abuse, neglect, or substance abuse issues, and no imminent danger since my son was in school. Yet despite the fact that I was only in the ER for 5 hours that day, my son was taken from school, once again immediately placed into foster care, and has never been allowed back home, not even for a supervised visit. Judge Minahan stated this is the closest I've ever come to dismissal for lack of evidence. It's obvious you love your son and would never harm him, and you were certainly looking out for his best interests, and ordered the department to make visits more frequent and fast-track my son home, none of which happened. Instead, we were outsourced to Dan Fox Youth Homes for supervised visits in their office, which I would walk 2 miles to, and seemingly ignored. I was given a treatment plan which was not geared towards the reason of removal, but instead based on a psychological evaluation the department specifically sent me to. Dr. Smelko, who I only met with 1 time in early April 2016, also testified against me in court, but nobody bothered to even contact the therapist I have been seeing and still continue to see since September of 2016. I completed all the requirements of my treatment plan, except I did not establish care with the pain management clinic because when I attempted to do so, I was refused treatment since I was not and am not on any narcotic pain medicine. Even though I had a complete hysterectomy 5 months after the removal, which identified and corrected the medical issue, every plea for reunification and or home visits fell upon deaf ears, and the department dragged our case out. Once the federally established timeline of being in placement passed, my parental rights were terminated by the same judge who had praised my efforts earlier on the basis that I was unable to change when I had clearly already done so. We appealed on 3 separate points, including ineffective counsel, lack of reasonable efforts to reunify, and that the district court abuses discretion. I believe the Supreme Court also failed to properly do their duty by simply not reading the court transcripts. The Supreme Court's affirmation only addresses the final issue, and requests to visit the others were denied. Yet they have since overturned a similar parental rights case based on lack of reasonable efforts. I have since discovered court documents where my public defender, regarding my public defender. These documents give a backman of this man that includes substance abuse issues, severe lifelong mental health problems with a suicide attempt that left him blind in 1 eye, years of family and marital issues, and a 7-year period where he was absconding from the law on charges in Wyoming while traveling the country with a fundamentalist religious group. His own wife called him, quote, a broken man, who gets angry over nothing, and his doctor testified that they would not characterize him as a high-functioning individual, and that he is not very organized and basically unable to stay on task. Yet this is what the state considers suitable legal representation. However, it is not just my case that I find troubling. We have a county attorney who handles DN cases, married to a CPS supervisor in the same county. Doesn't that seem like a conflict of interest? When parents stand up for their constitutional rights and speak up against the department, criminal charges are being brought against them based on allegations, and the department retaliates by prolonging cases. Helena's mayor is not only on the board of the directors with United Way, who works hand in hand with CASA, but he is also listed in the state employee data as a caseworker for CPS. CASA and CPS should be independent voices. Again, conflict of interest. A newborn removed from the hospital by the department for unwillingness to cooperate with this department. Where is that written as a definition of maltreatment? A current House representative and I personally watched CPS caseworkers and supervisor walk into the courtroom from judge's chambers immediately before he took the bench. That judge then proceeded to have every support person of the mother, including the representative, removed from the courtroom, leaving a single mother without any support, yet allowing a full group of CPS workers, attorneys, and support staff for the department to remain, making this woman feel very intimidated. In an effort to better understand how funding is tied to all this, I have spent quite a bit of time in the state's transparency website. Fiscal year 2020 began July 1st of this year. Every credit card payment the state made is dated July 22nd. DPHHS total payments equal $378,235. Out of that, airline fees alone are over $42,000, and hotel expenses that include stays in Dallas, Oyster Bay, New York, and New Orleans total almost $74,000, and many of those are four-star plus hotels. There are other fiscal years that show payments to casinos such as the Venetian, Tropicana, and Gold Coast in Las Vegas. Most notably, I have found payments not only to the accounting firm the gentleman who adopted my son works for, but to at least 2 of his immediate family members as well. And I still don't understand how my ordering pizza the night before my son's removal shows an inability to properly care for him, yet the department can spend over $6,000 at candy vendors in 1 year, and this is acceptable. Just these few questionable incidents I've mentioned paint the department in an extremely unfavorable light. And if I can find these kinds of suspicious connections, it poses the question, what else is going on with this department whose mission statement is keeping children safe and families strong? This certainly has not been my experience. Many compare cases of forced adoption to our broken criminal system, but I would add one exception. Even though parents in my position are put in a Even though parents in my position are put into a lifetime of punishment, we are often, as in my case, never convicted of or even charged with any crime. Yet the most precious thing, sometimes more precious than our own lives, is stripped from us at the hands of people, as evidence shows, with worse pasts than our own, with public records to show for it. I do not condemn them, but the system makes it impossible to understand the condemnation of myself and my son. Our state has an opportunity right now. We are rated number 2 for seizing kids from their parents. We can do better. We can set an example. There's a growing movement in Montana and across the country to correct the wrongs that have been done to parents whose kids are taken in exchange for federal dollars. Let this be the place with leaders who acknowledge the damage done and to its citizens and have the courage to say enough is enough. Thank you very much. And if you don't mind, I have a copy of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
There's 5 minutes left.